All right, what up, y'all? So first, as an intro to what's happening, this footage is background. It does not really fully matter to what I'm saying. I'll probably stop at certain points because of the fact that, some of it might showcase a point I'm talking about in this video. But so first off, shout out to Low Kick Esports who originally streamed this, actually at Frosty, and Data FGC who maintains the VOD. Also, shout outs to Lennox and Salty Boy on commentary. Lennox, if I said your name wrong, I'm sorry. Like, I always forget how your name's actually pronounced, like, legit. So, this is a double video, basically. This video is starting one section, but is actually kind of the start of two. I'm doing this video specifically so I can talk about offense, because I can't talk about offense without getting into the glories of the nuance of fighting game. So during the whole point of me talking about offense, you're also going to get the series to accompany it, words or English, accompany it. You're going to also get a whole series on nuance, and I'm going to start with the nuance video now because I think this is more important than me immediately getting into offense. This does apply to more than just offense, but the main thing that I'm going to talk about in this video specifically that's going to throw you for a loop as soon as I say it right now is you don't fucking matter. And I need you to understand that. But there's nuance behind that. So the thing about this concept that I am talking about is you have to understand the nuance of fighting games. And I think personally for me, this is the almighty rule. It is above anything else in fighting games. Because the thing about understanding how you don't matter also completely affects the way you interact with fighting games, and is also kind of what makes fighting games such a great thing once you get into the absorbed part. And I'm going to go back because this kind of is the point. So Monarch here spent meter on Oki, right? Monarch then immediately overcommitted to the Oki because, again, spent meter on Oki. You know what's something that exists in this game that not a lot of people do? Guard cancel. Especially not once you're under 100 meter, because usually you try to Roman cancel it after or RC it to make yourself safe just in case it doesn't work. One of the very few cases in EB you'll ever see someone Roman cancel. Shoutouts to getting Discord ads. Stuff like that is something you have to pay attention to, and is also why you don't matter. Because your offense and your defense isn't structured to you. It's structured to what your opponent can do to you. In both ways, like, you have to keep in mind that once you're structuring your offense, right, you're doing staggers because you're putting yourself under consideration that your opponent might mash. You're doing a safe jump. You're putting yourself in the consideration that your opponent might DP on wake up, right? So you don't want to get hit by the DP. You are considering that option, and you're doing an option to be catered to that. But let's also keep in mind, you are the only consistent in your play. And that's something that you also have to never forget, too. Like, you doing things like these staggers here, and this bait that just happened conveniently enough. I have actually not seen this VOD. These happen because of the fact that you're putting into perspective that your opponent can do something. So all of your reads is you considering your opponent can do something, and you're assuming this is the most likely thing they will do. So that EA was baited because that was the most likely thing that Monarch assumed that Dawn could do. Or maybe it wasn't baiting EA and it was just doing uncommittal pressure. You never know. I'm not Monarch here, so I can't put that in perspective. Of add that, or put that into the actual perspective of Monarch playing the set as the set happened. But when you are playing, that is something that comes from that. That is a stem of understanding what your opponent can do. And what your opponent can do is a majority of why you're making decisions in the fighting game. So therefore, you don't fucking matter. But with you being the only consistent, right? That means you are the only controllable variable where you, as a constant in that, means that you can do what's needed to cater to the inconsistent variable, which is your opponent, which is what happened here. And this also why Dawn is going to die here. So this overlying concept of nuance is what stems a lot of things in fighting games to me. Why I feel like this is the most important thing overall. And I didn't start with this because of the fact that getting the problematic stuff to talk to people about out first, I feel like generally helps more than me getting into the convoluted stuff where it's simple, but its simplicity is layered behind the fact that you have to always be thinking about something. And that is where you don't fucking matter comes into play, right? Because now we're now on the other foot, right? Monarch was clearly winning, and now Monarch is now dealing with all of Dawn's offense. And why should I stop it? Apparently doing a couple of overheads. I can do so many, right? You don't know how many overheads someone's going to introduce. You don't know how often they're going to actually match DP. That's why I was like, this is a very layered thing that applies to both offense and defense, which is why this is in its own section. It's not the start of the offensive structure thing because the fact that offense and defense are based off of this. But in my opinion, for offense, you really need to understand this if you want to be quote unquote good at your offensive. Because the problem with this is the fact that all of this is a stem of understanding, like, okay, how do I structure to my opponent? And your opponent is the inconsistent variable. That is the one thing you have to always consider. Regardless of what you're doing, you have to consider what your opponent can do. Like catching that backdash is crazy and also kills him here. No, just short. So like you have to sit there and be able to read backdashes. You have to be able to read all that stuff, right? But you don't have to commit to the read. There's other ways for you to play the game that's not committing to the read. Like you can structure yourself in certain ways to automatically consider certain things. Where let's go back and take it back to some of the starts of Conceptual Yap as a series, like spacing. You can space yourself in a way where you naturally bait options from your opponent. You don't have to sit there and force yourself to go for hard reads. And you can do that as a part of your offense. You don't need to sit there and force yourself to hard read someone all day to sit there and structure your offense to cater to them. The same way, you can forcibly set things up like this, right? Where let's go back. You give someone the illusion that they have free choice. Where in a case like this, the jump is the easiest thing to assume because you don't want to block all this, right? You have time to jump out, so jump out. Well, you got caught for the jump out. Jump out was immediately tracked because it's one of the logical things you'll do there. I love a VOD that conveniently like adds to what I'm saying in the where it's like it's the logical thing to do, right? So let me catch you for the jump out. Even if you don't get fully punished for it or don't fully capitalize, it's like that read is a stem from the fact that that's something your opponent can do, but it doesn't mean that's what they were going to do. Just because you can jump doesn't mean you will jump. Just because you guard cancel once and it worked doesn't mean it works again. That's also conveniently timed, where it's like Monarch got guard canceled once earlier on in the set. Naturally spaced himself outside of the range of guard cancel. Did he know the guard cancel was going to happen? No, because you don't know if he was actually going to use the meter again for guard cancel. But just from the space consideration, considered it enough where paid attention to it, right? So there's things like that that's matter to both your offense and defense that I always keep in consideration because of the fact that it's like you have to deal with the fact that it's like it is that layered. But at the same time, it's so simple too, because of the fact that it's like it's layered, but with you being the consistent to everything that's happening, you have a lot of say in like what is happening because you are the consistent. Because even if you don't know what your opponent can do, as long as they don't introduce anything you're not immediately unprepared for, you have the ability to prepare for it, right? This sounds all super convoluted, right? But this is how offense works, and that is why this is being paired with offense. I rather pair this with offense than pair it with defense because of the fact that understanding this basis of understanding you don't matter, right? Is going to allow you to structure your offense better because at this point, once you understand that you don't matter and you need to pay attention to your opponent more, which is really what I'm saying, from that alone, you'll be able to structure your offense better because you are being more aware of what your opponent can introduce to you. You're being more aware of what can be introduced. So you're considering certain things, and once you're paying attention to your opponent enough to sit there and pay attention to how they are playing defense, like the baseline of your offensive structure of how does your opponent play defense? Are they mashy? Are they super reserved and passive? If are they super liberal with certain options like their DP, right? Where they will DP all the time, but they won't actually genuinely mash too much. They're super prepared to tech throws, so now you have to think of unique ways to go for throws if you have a character that's a grappler. All of that is a stem of this, and being able to really pay attention to that is understanding that the baseline of you don't matter is what applies. Just that baseline factor of like, hey, I have to consider my opponent more than anything else does a lot. And again, it's like not just your offense, right? I'm pairing this with offense, but one thing I'm going to talk about this, which is not going to go in the offense session, but it's going to go in this nuance section, and it also can go for defense, is me talking about conditioning. So first off, I am never going to use the god awful term that is a paired term with the word mental that most people use because I think that is just a terrible way of talking about conditioning. That it's like you're saying the same thing, but you're just making it more convoluted for no reason. Like those are literally the same thing to me. So there's no point. Like you are conditioned on both offense and defense to think about what is introduced to you. So as I'm talking a little bit about it now, it's like if I never introduce throw to you for a majority of a game in a 3 game or a 2 game set, or really first to two wins, like this set here, if I never introduce throw to you, ooh, ooh, and we get to game 3 like this, right? You're not going to expect to have to react to throw if I throw you because the fact that I haven't shown throw as an option for the whole other 2 games we played. Like that's just legit. Like if I have not introduced throw to you, you're not going to expect me to go for throw. So you're not going to be prepared to tech a throw if I never introduce it. It's just like reality of that. But you also have to consider at the same time, if I go for throw too much, now you're going to be overly prepared to tech the throw. So now I can introduce throw baits into play because you're overly prepared to tech the throw because I introduced throw too much. So it prepped you on defense to be prepared for something that you had no clue I was going to do. And you got a different option because you got overly prepared from the fact that I threw you too much. Which is also the reason why I hate the term mental stack, because mental stack does not, I hate it, and I ended up actually saying it. Speaking of, hasn't thrown all set, introduced throw. But it's like one of those cases where it's like that term doesn't come, it doesn't cover the opposite of it. It doesn't cover like you're considering what's introduced, but you're not considering what's not introduced. And both of those are a pair of conditioning, and which is why I'm going to have a whole spiel on conditioning with a very certain set I have in mind. So watch for that we'll go with. But it's like all of that comes from literally understanding that, hey, you don't matter. So it's like, how do you introduce your offense for that to work? As well as how do you structure for it to work? And it's a double-sided coin, right? Because your opponent is then inconsistent for you, but you're also the inconsistent for them, right? So in both ways of playing the coin, you kind of have to pay attention to, all right, so I'm the consistent for myself, and I have to pay attention to my opponent. What is my opponent doing that I can cater to? What are they not doing that I can cater to? What are they ready for? What are they not? And both on offense and defense, that applies. So that's why conditioning is not talked about in offense, and it'll be talked about here in nuance. Like, again, I'm soft talking about it now, but it's not even close to the amount of detail that I want to showcase about it here. But this is the perfect quick video to talk about this before offense, of understanding that you don't matter and how that plays into fighting games. So having this nuance section and starting off with the most complex topic. And the same thing for offense. I'm going to talk about complex topics first, because once you get a grasp on the complex topics, the simple topics that follow up to them are so much easier, because the fact that you get it. Like, a big thing for offense for me, and this is going to be the first thing I'm going to talk about on offense, and you'll probably get that video later today at some point, or super late tonight, so expect to watch it in the morning. Ambiguity. Ambiguity is the biggest thing for me in fighting games. Understanding how to abuse ambiguity is literally one of the best things you can do for your offensive strength. And that ambiguity super plays into this concept, because of the fact that, again, you don't matter, but it's vice versa. So for your opponent, they have to consider the fact that they don't matter to you. And they have to consider everything you might introduce and how you introduce it. So it's the first super layered thing that sounds super convoluted, right? Because it's like, I'm saying you don't matter, but you do matter, and all this extra shit where it makes your brain hurt. But at the same time, once you add ambiguity into it, now you're playing with fire, because now you are giving yourself a whole bunch of extra options that your opponent has to be ready for, that I'm going to talk way more on once I get in that video. Like, it might actually be a longer video because I have so much to talk on, but we'll see what happens. Like, there's so much to structuring offense that comes from two overlying concepts in offense, then all of the basic concepts of offensive structure that come in after it. I really wish I could label the section as offensive structure, but I'm going to say again, if I didn't say it at the beginning, I'm going to probably label it pressure, because of the fact that YouTube has this terrible character limit for titles of 100. And for some of these sections, I'm going to say already now, I have been barely within the title range to make that. So expect that to be labeled pressure, but I'm really talking about how to structure your offense. And it's very layered, because if you don't understand this, you will never truly understand offense. So to gain the actual weight and value out of your offense, you have to have a baseline of this and other concepts of nuance, which is why these are paired sections. I might not always drop them in like nuance, offense, nuance, offense, nuance, offense, but keep in mind that once I drop one video, there's another video that does accompany it, that comes in this section, that you should understand. I am not going to try to delve too deep. Like, legitimately, I'm not going to try to delve too deep, because at that point, I'm eliminating some of the thought process behind it that I want people to naturally gain on themselves behind understanding fighting games. But I do want to start this whole entire section off with my glorious thing of, this is my overall. This might not be the same overall for any other fighting game player, because there's so many ways to think about fighting games when it comes to like okiwaza, atawaza, or like understanding like the three parts of the soul, I guess, of fighting games, where it's like mind, body, and etc. and all of that. This concept is the thing that drives me in fighting games, and this is what makes them interesting for me, is understanding how much I'm playing around the concept of you don't matter, because that conceptually opens up so many doors. And I will talk more on that from here. So, with that, later, y'all. I hope I kind of mind fucked you a little bit to start off your day if you're watching this now.